Hello, welcome back. All right, let's jump into the layout section of this project. So this is like the little break we're going to take, and you're going to learn about layout. Today I'm going to describe layout, all the important parts of a layout. As you design, we set up digital layouts that have to have certain parts and pieces every time we do it, no matter what. And this deals with print and digital design, everything we do. It is the industry standard. So once we start working, every time you make a document, you should be adding in 90% of these parts. And I'm going to go over the design layout, and then I'm going to have you do a Illustrator layout, and then an InDesign layout, and then you have your other project. These are fairly simple, but it's to get you to understand how to really start using the programs correctly. The reason we do this is a lot of people just jump in. You know, they open up Illustrator and they just start designing, and it's all jumbled and it's all on one layer. And then they're trying to figure out where this is, where that is. It's the wrong size, you know, like all this stuff. So we're going to go over that, and I'm going to show you, like, generally when you get a project from hopefully all of your instructors from here on out, and you get a project from a client, there's going to be all of this information you need to put in first: the size, the bleed, the this, the that, the everything. That is very important. In the end, it costs money. If you get information from a printer or a client and you don't follow it correctly, it can cost you money, your company money, the other people money. Things can be run late. It's so important to start to do this every time. I'm going to do it with 2 projects with you before the end of the semester. And then when you take other classes with me in 3rd semester, every project I give you is going to be scrutinized for making sure your layouts are correct. And other instructors do it as well. So let's open up the layout defined. All right, the artboard. That is the size of the piece that you are going to create. We need a poster. It's 24 by 36. All right, that's the artboard. That is simply, think of it when you see when you picture in your head somebody painting a painting on a canvas. The canvas from edge to edge is the artboard. And sometimes it is called a canvas, a page, or an artboard. You know, I don't know why they dibble-dally with that, but they all mean the same thing. And that is, the artboard is the exact visual area of the piece. So anything that is in this black line will be seen by the public. We put artwork past that line, which we'll describe later or next, that is purposely there for when it's manufactured. Well, why do I need to do that? Because when it's manufactured, they can't do it as accurate as you think. That's why. Everybody always wonders why. But the artboard, simply the artboard with nothing else on it, that is just where the art goes. It goes in the middle, and that's what everybody sees. That is kind of like the final size of the piece. Bleed, very important. So we have the artboard, and when we create something, we need anything that we want touching the edge purposely, say a color or a photo, anything like that. If we want it to the edge and we want it like right on the edge, we actually have it go past the edge. Reason being is that they use machines. So when your piece is printed, we're used to our lives, and we print off of a printer at school or at home or maybe at our work, and the piece is printed, you know, 8.5 by 11, and everything prints right down the middle, 8.5 by 11. When you go to get something professionally printed, it is printed on a larger piece of paper. So instead of 8.5 by 11, it's like 10 by 12. And it allows for extra room. So then they come in and they cut everything off. And if you don't have bleed, when they cut it off, because it is not an exact science, things shift. You may end up with a white edge on one side, but no white edge on the other, because the paper shifts, things shift. And so we include bleed. So if things shift, we don't have a white edge. It's the professional way to do it. So it's very confusing, and it takes a little bit to get used to. But like, say I have this box here, okay? And I want it right up to this edge. But say something happens when they're cutting it out, and all of a sudden they're a little bit like an 1/8 inch off. What's going to happen is, let me zoom in. You're going to have a piece with this white edge that doesn't look good. So what we do is we put it past. And then that way, if they cut it too close or too much, no matter what, there's going to be color there. It's not going to be a white, you know, I should, properties. I'm going to remove that orange line. Make it more clear. So that's what we mean by that. That's the bleed. So when they cut on this black line that you see, if they're a little bit past or a little bit under, at least you have that area covered. And that is called bleed. It is bleeding past the edge of the artboard, and all your art will look great. We're going to start working with bleed now. And yes, next one, crop marks. Well, I talk about cutting this out. Crop marks are there to show the printer where it needs to be cut out. So you put the crop marks on as a guarantee, because the artboard will disappear. Let's draw that. So because, oh, well, here, I'll do this. I won't show through. This is kind of weird, but even at this, say I wanted a big teal piece of paper printed, and I have my bleed on it and everything. But now, where do they cut it out? How does the printer know where to cut it out? Well, I have crop marks that are usually on top of the art piece, just because I'm doing this in this demonstration, they're not. But the client, the producer of the piece can now look at this and say like, oh, exactly, I know where the crop marks are. A crop mark is here. We go here. I'm going to cut here, and I'm going to cut here. And that's how it works. So they don't actually have that line, and they just cut out everything by the crop marks, and then you have this beautiful sheet of teal. You know, I'm using that as an example, of course, but that's what we're talking about when we do that. So that's why we have crop marks, because the artboard starts to go invisible. They don't see it. When they print it, it doesn't print with a black line for the artboard. We don't want a black line on our artwork. So all these things start to disappear. And so we mark on the outside of the piece. And these are crop marks, so they know that when they cut it out, where to cut it, and we don't have a black line. We never have a black line showing. That's just doesn't happen. Grids. Grids are created by the artist to help the design. There are thousands of types of grids. There are graphic design books written specifically about using a grid system. There are people who go insane about it, and other people who don't use them at all. It's good to know that they're there to use, though. It's good to know because when you design, you can space stuff out. You can start to look at your work and be like, all right, if I have a piece and I have an image that's like these big and I want another one, well, if I place it here, it's nicely within the grid system, or here, it's perfectly aligned in the grid system, or like, even if I put it here, I know it's this far away from this edge, this far away from this edge, and perfectly aligned with each other. So you use the grid system to really help work out where you want stuff on your piece, and it keeps you in line. Graph paper. Think of it as it's graph paper for the digital age. let's see, grids. I use them on and off. I don't always use them. I sometimes use them. I sometimes don't. Like I said, there's books on it. I've seen some beautiful grid work where it's like, oh gosh, yeah, I don't think you could have designed it without using a grid. Like there's just too much stuff. And the computer does it for you. Again, it's one of these things you can set up and have it set up by the computer. You don't have to sit there and make lines. Some people do. Some people use the computer and you can type in, I want the grid to be every ½ inch. And then you can even make weird grids. And then, like I said here, there's manuscript grid, column grids, baseline grids, modular grids, all different types of grid systems to help you design a very clean and professional design. So it's not all just, we think like, oh, you just place it in. I'm just going to put it here. I'm going to put the text here. But this allows you to put the text where you want it, like within reason and making sure that it's going to look good in the end. So grids are just a helper. They're a wonderful helper and they don't print. They don't show up. Nobody sees them in the end. So again, the awesome part about that. Guides. This is what I use, called pulling guides. Guides are pulled from the top and the bottom, or not top and the side, excuse me, of the design piece. I'll show you how to pull guides today. And I use these every day. I don't think there's a design I ever open in which I don't use a guide to help me. It's besides number 7, this is like number 2, in the work. Every one of these is important except for grids is probably like the least. You need to have your artboard. Your artboard is your size. You need to make sure you bleed off the page so it prints and it prints correctly. Crop marks are there to help the person who's printing this know what to do. Grids are there for you, and you use them if you want to. Guides are there for you. You use them if you need to. But like I said, I use guides. Even on the weirdest, like simplest designs, I'll throw in some guides just to help. Just to like, wait, I want to make sure everything is on a perfect line. And I'll just pull down a guide and then make sure everything's lined up perfectly. It's so easy to use. You can toggle them on and off, as it says. Everything is key commands. You see it, don't see it, do it, undo it. Super easy stuff. And finally, one of the most important parts about the design layout is the margin. The margin is created as a buffer zone. The buffer zone being this area in between the artboard, or it's this area, and you can make this area whatever you want, but there needs to be a margin. The margin is the area where you don't put important information. So if I were to place some text, and this is really important text, right? Super important. I would never place the text past that margin. Reason being, anything important, they have to read it. If I go past this margin, there's a chance that it's going to get cut off, just like you see right there. So the margin is there as a safety guide. We say, in this design, I don't want anything important like text, a logo, maybe somebody's face in a photo. The photo can bleed off the edge, but we want to make sure the face doesn't go past the margin. The margin is our buffer zone. And so many times, every day, practically, I see this happening, is where students, for some reason, decide to put the text all the way to the edge of the piece, which is absolutely wrong. And you'll get knocked down for that. Text, important stuff, stops at the margin. The margin doesn't print. We put it on there. We put it in a template form. It doesn't show up. But when you're designing and you're like working on your poster, or you're going to work on a pamphlet, you never put anything past the margin. It is there as a buffer zone. Background, you can have black, blue, whatever, go behind it and go past and bleed off. But if it's important, it stays and it stops right there. So that's the importance of the margin. Go back, read this, know it. You're going to be using these terms for the rest of your career here at MATC and as a graphic designer. All right, let's do our first layout, our second layout, and then I'll design practice. Everything is here for you, all right? You just need to follow the steps, okay? One by one by one by one by one. Just follow these steps to create what you needed to create. I'm going to move this over because I have two screens. I need to be able to read one and open, but I'm going to walk through this and you can see everything step by step by step. And sometimes I jump around. I will purposely make sure I don't jump around. This is Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to go to New File. I'm going to create a print document. Print is here. Not something that I always do because usually I know the size and I'll go right here. But good habits start early. So go to print. And then what you're going to do is we need to create a print document that is 24 inches wide by 36 inches tall. First thing, I'm going to change points to inches. Then I'm going to type in 24 width, 36 height. And I'm not going to leave yet. Okay, that's step one. The document needs to have a quarter, number two, the document needs to have a 1/4 inch of bleed. That's 0.25 inches. There's bleed right there. All I have to do is type in 0.25 and click on the next one and it auto populates. Meaning it just knows it's almost a rarity that your bleed is different. But if you work in a magazine, if you do anything like that, it is different. So there we go. Now I'm going to hit create. And we are going to be working in layers and the properties panel mostly. So create a layer called margin. That layer will have a box that is 22 inches wide by 34 inches tall. The box will be perfectly centered on the artboard. The box will have no fill and a 1-point magenta stroke. Lock the layer once complete. All right. I'm just going to double click. This layer, I'll have to double click on it and it highlights margin. It is important that you start creating layers with names so you know where your stuff is when you're creating a design. I now went to the box here. I'm creating a box. I'm going to go to properties and I'm going to make my box. I'm going to do this top one, transform. I want it 22 by 34. I want the fill with nothing, the stroke to be magenta, and 1 point. Now I can grab that and I'm going to go to align, and it's aligned to artboard, and I'm going to hit center it. Then I'm going to make sure I have it grabbed one more time. Oh no, we don't need to do that. And I'm going to lock it. Layers, and I'm going to lock it. I hit next to the eyeball is a lock. Now I can no longer grab that, and I can't even work on this because this layer is locked, meaning nobody else can do anything on it. Now I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go down to the bottom. I should bring this up. Sometimes this doesn't always show up. It gets cut off. This is so you can see the bottom. I'm going to go to the plus right there. Layer 2. I'm going to double click on it and call it crop marks. Now I'm going to create a box that is 24 by 36. It'll have no fill and no stroke. And it'll be an invisible box, but it is needed for the crop marks in Illustrator. So I'm going to just draw a box. I think I did a pretty good job on that one. I'm going to go to properties. It's 24 by 36. All right. Stroke, nothing. I'm going to make sure it's perfectly centered. And then the difference part, I'm going to hit FX and the third one down, crop marks. And you may say it didn't do anything. But if I zoom in, I have crop marks for the piece created. See that? They're tiny, but they're there. So now I have my crop marks, and you can lock that layer as well. I'm going to turn on the grid and turn on the ruler. So for ruler, I use the command keys. So learn the command keys because it's something I turn on and off every time. So first, let's go over the grid. We're going to go to View, and down here, Show Grid. There it is. That grid can be changed in the future, and you can do that through, I usually do it through Preferences, which is different for everybody, but you can change the grid. I want a grid line. This is set up for every inch, and you can change the subdivisions to like, oh, I want it every quarter inch. So an inch divided by 4 is that. Grids are in back, show pixel, and then you can even change the color, but you don't need to. But that's what it does. So then when I zoom in, I've got a 1-inch grid that's separated into 4 segments. So that's the grid. Now I'm going to turn on the ruler, show rulers. It's Command R. I use this command every time I open a document. Boom. I got my ruler in there so I can see the rulers come up on the side. On, off, on, off. See that flashing? So you always want them on. Because then what we're going to do is we're going to pull guides. So I'm going to have to start, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to unlock crop marks, and I'm going to pull 1 vertical and 1 horizontal guide to split it in half. All right, so 24. And what all you have to do is I'm on crop marks. It's unlocked. I'm going to go to the ruler, click and drag, and see that little line there? I'm going to drop that on the 12. Oops, I'm going to do a better job. I'm going to zoom in because I know it wants to go to the 12. And I'm a big proponent of zooming in. So I'm going to pull that from the side and let it go. Oh, man, did it again. There, 12, and then it should be 16. So I'm going to scroll up. What I'm doing here, when you see that hand, I'm hitting the space bar that changes it to a hand tool, it's called. And then I can pull it up and move it around. The hand tool is called panning. 16 is right there. So I'm going to pull a grid down to 16, or a guide. And the guides are in cyan. And there you go. You can see them better. Did I do that right? Oh, it's 18. Well, my math is wrong. So I can just undo that. Pull again to 18. My mistake. 18 is half of 36. And just undo. If you get it wrong, undo is the same as it is in every program across the world. It's Command Z, Control Z, undo. Don't like some, undo. Don't like some, undo. There you go. So that's how you pull it. This is what it should be looking like. I know my command keys, so I can turn them on and off. That's it. Without the grid, with the grid, without the guides, with the guides, without the ruler, with the ruler, all by command keys. Start to learn those. It so makes things so much easier. As I've said in the past, or as we design, you should design with 2 hands. 1 hand on the mouse, 1 hand on the keyboard. You're always using the keyboard to help you design. All right, let's make our other layers. I'm going to lock that one up. I'm going to add a layer. Let's call that one logo. I'm going to add another layer. Double click on it. Images. I'm going to add another layer. This one is called paragraph. Going to add another layer, dates. I'm going to add another layer, headliners. Don't worry, you're going to be, this is weird, but you're going to be using this document later on in class. Now, this is very important. Step 13, move the margin layer to the top of the layer list. Click on the hamburger menu part of the layer panel and select template. What does that mean? So I can move my layers around. With it selected, I'm going to click and drag it all the way to the top. Now the hamburger menu is this thing, the 3 lines. It's called a hamburger menu. And I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go to template, which is down here, template. And what the template does is it switches it from an eyeball to this little square. And what that does to the layer is whatever is on a template layer will never print. It will, you can see it, the designer can see it, but it won't print. And it allows you to make very special templates for your piece to help you design better, but it will never show up. So it's very cool. Now, finally, you can click anywhere. I'm going to create a layer, and I'm going to call it name, not namer. I'm going to grab the type tool. Either I'm going to click once. I'm going to type in my name. I'm going to make it big. Always hold down shift. Every time you scale something, you must hold down shift. And just for the benefit of being perfect graphic designer, I'm going to center this. You can center it many different ways. If I hold on it and I go, I should get some indications in pink. There's a little pink arrow in the middle. It should start to help center things. You can use, I use the keyboard keys. So on my keyboard, there's 4 arrows, and you can just use the arrows to tap, 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 tap. I'm going to go out, zoom out to full screen. It's Command or Control 0. So that's in view. You can use the magnifying glass, but start to use quick keys. All right, now we're going to save this. So I'm going to save one for me. And then I'm going to save a PDF, and you're going to upload both of them. You know how to do that because you've been doing it so far with the design projects and the design practice and all of your other practices. You've been doing this, so you know how to save it with the correct name, your name, poster layout, your name, poster layout, and you're going to upload both. I need to check your work. I'm going to check for layers. I'm going to check for rulers, everything. So that's how you create a document in Illustrator, the correct way. Once you start doing it, this takes about 3 minutes. Like right now, he's like, wow, it took 10, 15 minutes every time I do this. No, this is like getting in the car. You know, if you're a driver, you get in the car, you open the door, you sit down, you put on your seatbelt, you arrange everything, you put the car keys in, and boom. But like when you're a first-time driver, you're like, okay, I got to adjust the mirrors, and I got to do this, and I did do this, and then the. Once you're doing it, you just get in, you do everything by heart. You just know it. So that is the Illustrator. Let's do the InDesign now. InDesign, different program, different beast. It's A-okay. You're going to get through it. InDesign, as you've already been starting at InDesign, I'm going to work through this. In actuality, it's almost easier in InDesign to set up a document because some of the stuff like bleeds and margins auto start. Like you just have to type in one thing. You don't have to create. And crop marks are created on the back end when you export the piece. So that also makes it a little bit easier. Illustrator doesn't have that process as well set in if you sent out a document in an Illustrator file. So, all right, that's why I just wanted to talk about that for a minute. New file. I get this pops up. Let's go to print, and I want to change it from picas to inches. I want it 8.5 by 11. No, I don't. I'm tricking you. I purposely said that. I want it reversed. I want it 11 by 8.5. So I want it wider than it is tall. So width is 11, height is 8.5. Landscape. So it's like taking an 8.5 by 11 and turning it on its side. What 90% of the time when we talk in graphic design, we always talk width then height, width then height. It's an industry standard, but not everybody always goes by it. So it's sometimes you have to double check, or you always ask, what is the width? What is the height? or tall, how tall, and they'll be able to tell you. All right, so we got 11 by 8.5 inches, pages 2. Here's one. Do not, number 3, forget to turn off facing pages. Facing pages is used when you have a multi-page document. We're doing 4 pages, but we're splitting them in half. I'm setting up this document a little bit differently than I would because this is a single page printed on both sides, cut in half. But anything above that, which we start to go to odd pages, I would start to use facing pages. You'll learn more about that in your InDesign course. Bleed, well, all we do is scroll down. This is so nice. Oh, I'll jump around. Margin, sorry, number 4, margin set at 0.25. Again, you do it once, and then click on another one, it auto-populates. Bleed, 0.25. Typed in the 1, clicked on bottom, auto-populates. Slug, we're not going to worry about. It's A-OK. I'm going to hit create. My ruler is already on. It sometimes remembers that stuff. And if I zoom out, you can see I have 2 pages here. All right. The rulers are on, but you go to view, hide rulers. If I do hide rulers, view, show rulers. Again, learn that key command so you can just do it like that fast, and you're all good. Create a layer called guides. All right, I'm gonna double click on this. I'm gonna call it guides. As you can see, there's just small different nuances. Instead of popping up a window here, like Illustrator doesn't pop up this window, InDesign does. I'm gonna call it guides. And I'm gonna pull a guide to the exact middle of each page, and then pull 2 guides a 1/4 inch away from the middle guide that you just pulled on each page. 1 on each side of the middle page. So what does that mean? What is he talking about? I am creating a fake guide margin. So I'm going to pull a guide from the edge, just drag and pull. And this one is nice because it gives you that X. And then so I want it at 5.5. I want one at 5.25. And I want one at 5.75. So if you cut this in half, I am continuing this margin by splitting the board in half and then adding the extra on the sides. That's why I did it like this. And I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to do the exact same thing. 5.5, 5.75, 5.25. And now I'm doing that hand thing again. Again, just hit the space bar for every tool but the type tool. If you just hit the space bar, you get this hand. You can click and drag. And then I'm going to cut this in half. So 4.25 is 8.5 cut in half. Oh, what? Oh, I somehow clicked off the system. 4.25. Go up. 4.25. Make sure you click on the artboard that you want. That may be, if you go from one to the other and something happens, click on the artboard. Like make sure it's got to be activated. So look to the side here. If you can see where I'm circling right here, it's a brighter white. But if I click on this, this becomes a brighter white. This page is activated or this page is activated. So if you're running into trouble, double check your edge and be like, which ruler is activated, and just not double, but you just click on the artboard and it changes which one's activated. Again, this may sound weird. This becomes like so second nature to you after a little while. It's going to be like nothing. So, all right. So I have the guides. I'm going to create a layer called photo. I am going to create a layer called name. I'm going to create a layer called images. I am going to create a layer called paragraphs. I'm going to create a layer called site. I'm going to create a layer called pages. Now I'm going to create 4 type boxes, and I'm going to label them as shown in the images. So I have an image at the bottom of the assignment that I want you to match. And it's fairly easy. I'm going to show you the way to do it. So you can grab the text tool, and I'm going to grab from one corner to the other. And I'm on pages. And then I'm going to write back cover. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this. I have back cover. I'm going to do 2 quick things. Up on my top here, this is called, if I go to window, and it should be called control. If yours isn't showing, make sure you have control is showing, okay? And I'm going to hit this middle bar here, okay? I'm going to hit that middle bar, and what that does is it puts my text directly in the middle of that. And then I'm going to go to paragraph, and I'm going to hit middle center line on paragraph. Now all I have to do is I'm going to copy and paste and put this here. And I'm going to rechange this name to cover. All right. And if you want, well, oh, no, that's later. And then you can, I'm going to click and drag those 2. I'm going to copy. I'm going to go to this, click there, and I'm going to go to edit, paste in place. And it pastes these exactly in the same place as they were. Paste in place is such a great tool. And then I'm going to call this, I'm going to go to that text tool, and this is page 1. This is page 2. And then I'm going to finalize this by adding one more layer, your name. I'm going to call it name. Oh, go to the name one then. Oh, my name. Because we're going to use that name for something else. And then I'm going to put in my name. I'm going to create a text box. And I'm going to start bigger. And then I'm going to reduce the size. I started bigger because I didn't want to click into my other text box, which if you don't want to do that, you just lock it. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. Joel Skaja. And I'm going to go to center it, and down here, center it. And then I'm going to save this as it says. Save as a InDesign file, and then you're going to export it as a PDF. Mistakenly says save the project name. It is export as. That's how you do it. Again, you've been doing this a couple times already, so you should know what to do. So those are how you create layouts. Again, it seems like a slow process, like, oh, there's a lot to do. It's not. It is very quick once you start rolling with it. All right. And then our design practice, download. And then I'm going to go to my downloads. I'm going to double click for Mac, right click on PC, Gail Anderson. She's an Illustrator file. That's going to open just like we have it. We need to place in some images, and I have a trick one this week. So I am going to go and start easy. I'm going to go to Photo, and I'm going to go to File, Place. And as you look, everything but the crop marks are on this image. Everything but the crop marks are visible in this. Just put those in. I think I ran the something happened, but I'm going to play scale. Boom. I'm going to make it small. By doing that, I'm holding down the shift. As we always hold down shift, we never not hold down shift. We always constrain when we size. Always constrain. Now I got 3 more. I'm going to lock that one. I'm going to go to examples. I'm going to file, place. And again, 3 examples, but one is tricky. So there we go. I'm going to grab all 3, click and drag. I'm going to go to scale, double click on that. I'm even going to go to 25 because then I can make it bigger. It's a little bit easier. I can see them on the page. This one will go here, this one go here, and this one go here. I'll do the 2 easy ones. These 2 should line up perfectly with each other. So get them to lock in. I'm going to zoom in. I want them touching and then perfectly in line. I can double check that by selecting those 2 and then going to properties and making sure that they're centered, centered with each other right there. Don't hit anything else. Just hit that one or that one. They're good. Now they're both selected. I'm going to put them into the corner and then holding down shift, I'm going to make them as big as they need to be for the piece. Now I'm going to teach you something new. I'm going to show you how to crop an image in Illustrator. It's a 2-part process. I have my image here. It does not need to be selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a box on top of it. The box can be anything, but it's sometimes good to see what you're doing. So if that bugs you and you need to see it, change your properties. You can do your stroke to like red and you can see it. And if you need to do any of this for helping to really get it perfect. And I'm going to make sure my box is really good inside. Like I'm making sure I don't have anything that I don't want. I'm inside that little black line. It's all good. Now, when I'm going to grab both. I'm going to grab the new box I drew and the image behind it. And I'm going to go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And there you go. That cropped the image for me. And then I'm going to bring it over here. And I'm going to make it the size it needs to be. Make a box on top of the image. Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And then the rest, you know what to do. Go to Layers, unlock everything else, move in the text, adjust as needed by tapping, get it really nice, make sure it's all lined up, get it really nice. Put in the black. As you can see, the black goes all the way out to the bleed. File save. Now, a couple of people have still been doing this. When I go to File and I go to Save As for my PDF, we're not doing everything. Make sure marks and bleeds. Make sure this is not clicked on. If it's clicked on, it shows the bleeds. Make sure that's not on. That's on if there's a check mark on it. We do not want the check mark. And then save PDF. I have mine automatically open. That's what you should be handing in. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. Is there any right now? All right. You know how to get a hold of me. That's it. Have a great weekend. I will talk to you on the discussion boards. See you on Tuesday. Bye.